Councilman Grayson Boucher. Suddenly we all find out that Henry Whitehorn, yet to be confirmed as CAO, Chief Administrative Officer by the City Council, is working at City Hall in a position called Chief of Staff. Did you know about that? Did you have an inkling? What were your thoughts when you saw that?
Well, no, I didn't know that it was coming. The mayor did mention to us in the City Council meeting at one point that Mr. Whitehorn would be working during a transition period. However, I was unaware that the position of Chief of Staff was going to be given to him, or that his starting salary would be $160,000 without being confirmed by the council.
Pardon me, Grayson, is he replacing someone as Chief of Staff, or is this a job that has just sort of been created?
I'm not quite sure what's going on the second floor of Government Plaza, to be honest with you. We don't know exactly who does what, or it's just kind of it seems like that we're creating all these chiefs and department heads that really aren't called for by the charter. But back to the point, I did not know about this until I saw a news report on KTBS night before last at 9:00.
What were your thoughts? What did you think? You go, well, what the heck? Or did you go, yeah, well, it's not that big a deal?
Well, it's not that big of a deal that Mr. Whitehorn started. I'm just not quite sure what the Chief of Staff does. I would like to see a job description. Let's say something happens on Tuesday and this gets postponed, or Mr. Whitehorn gets voted down as the CAO. What happens to that position at that point? We've got another $160,000 that we've added, to our debt in the city. The mayor had a balanced budget in the administration budget this year by moving economic development into the riverfront budget in order for him to balance his budget. So where are we going to come up with this extra $160,000? Those are all concerns and things that I feel like should have come to the council prior to this big, what I consider big move to have been made.
Maybe you've talked to other council people about this. Maybe you've, chatted a little bit, maybe a view behind the curtain here. Is the mayor allowed to just sort of, well, you know what? I'm going to create a job called Chief of Staff. And I don't know if there is a position, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is there such a thing as Chief Financial Officer, where Ms. Fields-Jones is moving to, as opposed to the Director of Finance? How is all this working? How do you see this playing out?
Well, there's been a lot of questions raised by the public about that. Are these positions available? Can the mayor do this without approval of the council? Or does it fall with the charter? Like I said earlier, when we were talking about Ernie, I love Shreveport history. I've read the charter. That's one of the first things I did whenever I decided to run for city council. We have a form of government that was voted on in the late 1970s. The charter is very specific about how the roles of each member of the government. I think one of the most concerning things for me about the whole thing is, Ms. Fields-Jones will be actually taking the place of the finance director. We all know that. We're going to rename it Chief Financial Officer, which I don't have a problem with. One of the issues I have, though, is her direct reporting goes to the mayor and not the CAO. The way the city government was set up, and I've talked to several people that helped frame the city government back in the late 70s, the city government was set up where the mayor was over the police and fire department due to the fact that it was civil service rules that he had to be. He was the appointing authority. And then the CAO was over all the other departments and reported directly to the mayor. So, in essence, we're kind of circumventing the charter by letting the CFO report directly to the mayor, and that's one of my biggest issues that I have. We're pretty much changing.
Excuse me a second, Mr. Grayson. You said we're sort of circumventing the charter. Let me challenge your pronoun there. You're not saying we're sort of circumventing the charter. What you're saying is the mayor is circumventing the charter. Obviously, you think
exactly. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? What do you think is the purpose of all that?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask the mayor that question and his reasoning for it. I'm just bringing up the points that concern me the most. If we're going to go in and start making changes to the charter, then we need a charter review. I think that Councilman Nicholson or Councilman Fleury had proposed that, and it got postponed. If we're going to start making changes to the charter, we need a charter review. You can also read in the charter that there's supposed to be a city position. We don't have that position anymore. So, the charter was passed in 1978. It's time to kind of look at it. And I think that this just brings up the point that a charter review committee, it's time to have it.
So Tuesday, I guess, the vote on Mr. Whitehorn will take place. Do you think the mayor's got a plan B if he gets voted down, or do you think there's any possibility that could happen?
I don't know. I can only speak for my vote, and I don't know where the rest of the votes fall right now. It's early. If I've learned anything in the last 14 months, you never go into a city council meeting thinking that it's a sure bet that something's going to happen or not going to happen. So I don't know. But if I were the mayor, I would be extremely concerned that I've given a gentleman a $160,000 a year job without the security of that job.
Has Grayson Boucher decided what his vote is, and do you want to tell us?
I'm pretty much, I'm an open book, and I would tell anybody at this point I'm a no, and it's not because of the merits of Mr. Whitehorn. I believe that he did a good job in everything that he's done in the past, but I would like for the mayor to have posted this position. I would like for the mayor to have made this public. Let's do some interviews, and let's find somebody that's exactly suited for this position. If that is Mr. Whitehorn, then so be it. But I don't feel like just arbitrarily giving it to someone just because you think he's a good guy is the way to go.